All right, we live? Cool. This is the second time I've recorded this video. But what I want to go over today is why your mix sucks. And your mix sucks because you suck at recording. So, my philosophy for this video is 80% of your mix comes from your recordings, and the other 20% comes from the actual mix. So, some of this stuff will be probably basic for you and you probably already know it, but we need to be reminded more than we're taught. So basically what I'm doing is reminding you all of the basics that you need to know. Stick around with me because I promise you're going to learn something and your mixes are going to get better if you reevaluate the way you're doing your basics. So probably a lot of my audience is guitar players, so I'm going to start with guitars. You've probably seen one of these before. You know, these are pretty cool. Basically, for this video, I'm trying to reach an audience of people that, you know, have a basic home studio. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, nothing too expensive or anything, just enough to be able to like make a demo in their room or their house or whatever they're doing. So yeah, with that in mind, probably a lot of you have a guitar, because that's how I started. So first thing is if you're recording like a full album or you're just recording a single or something, like get fresh strings. The strings you use and also the strings age have an influence on your tone. So if you want a really clean, bright tone, then get new strings. If you let your strings get too old, they become a little bit thumpy and a little bit darker. If that's what you want, that's fine. Just know strings affect your tone. And also, your tone knobs. When's the last time you actually touched one of these? Probably not often. So just a quick checklist of what these mean. This is for changing which pickups you use. So if your pickup slider is all the way over here, it's using just your bridge. If it's in the middle, it's using both pickups. And if it's over here, it's using your neck pickup. So you just want to make sure that like your tone knobs are correct and make sure your volume knob is all the way up. And that is how you make sure that your guitars are ready to record. The next thing is, oh my gosh, make sure your guitars are in tune. Like make sure you're in tune, and every time in between takes, every time you record, retune your guitar, because you can play a riff a couple times and then your guitar goes out of tune, right? And it doesn't matter how expensive and nice your guitar is, it's gonna go out of tune if you play it a lot, right? So every time you record a new take, every single time, I just pull up my tuner and I tune my guitar, right? Because the tuning has a lot to do with how your tone is and how your overall mix sounds. Because people send me their demos to get mixed all the time, and I literally say, I cannot mix this because your guitars are out of tune. Like, you need to re-record. It's going to be way harder to EQ something when one guitar is slightly flat and the other one is slightly sharp, because the frequencies are always going to be messing with each other. The same thing with bass guitar. If you've ever felt like your low end is like all the way over here, but the rest of your mix is over here and your low end just feels funky, it's probably because your bass is out of tune. You want to make sure that your bass is in tune with your guitars and the rest of the song, right? Because just by having all of your notes on the same key and the same pitch exactly to the best of your ability, it's going to have a drastic impact on the way your mix sounds EQ wise. Okay. So that's like the basics of, so this also goes with bass guitar as well, obviously. And I do have something pulled up right here, because the next thing we need to know is we need to know like how to make sure our audio interface gain is correctly calibrated, right? So first of all, use a high quality 1/4 inch cable. Don't use your dad's from like 1990. It's probably going out. It probably sounds like crap. There might be a little hiss or hum in the background that we don't want. Use a fresh, high quality cable, and you want to make sure that you are hitting in this area. You don't want it too quiet. So basically what you want to do is you want to really strum your guitar hard, like as hard as you can, and you want the max to be in this yellow. Like after you freaking rip your guitar, the max amount of like the color that comes up should be yellow. If you're going over into the red, you need to dial back your gain. If you're ripping your guitar and you're just seeing green, you need to turn it up until it's just a hair, like it's barely just cresting into yellow. That's how you know you're hitting around -2 dB. You don't want to go to 0 or 1 dB because you'll be clipping, and that's going to make your tone sound terrible. Okay, so now that we know how to do that, next thing is mics. I'm basically telling you all this stuff because like this is the stuff that you need to know to be able to have a high quality mix. I've already said this like a million times on this video, but it's super important just to get the basics down, because just by doing that, you're like 50% of the way there. You're going to be doing the same thing with your mic, with your drum mic, anything, but we're going to be going over vocals right now. Make sure you're using a good mic. This is a really nice mic, and make sure you're using a mic specifically for what you're trying to record, right? I know I'm using an SM57 for my vocals, but I'm making sure it's pointed the right way at where my words are coming out, right? Because if I was to flip up my microphone like this, the tone drastically changes, right? And I don't want to record vocals like that. I want to record vocals when they're like this. You want to make sure that the mic is facing the correct way. And also, I recommend using a pop filter if your mic doesn't automatically have some sort of covering or something. If you're using just like straight into metal, use a pop filter, because if I go pa 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 pa, you can hear that when my pop filter is off, you can hear more of a p sound. But when it's like this, you don't hear it as much because it's gathering all that air right there and making sure it doesn't go into the mic. Pop filters are really good because it's basically automatically EQing. And also, if you leave in the p sound, when you go to EQ, it's going to be like impossible to EQ it off, just from experience. The next thing is, so you know that you have to have it in the right position and use a pop filter. The next thing is, if you're going to be recording a full album or even just a full single, make sure that when you're doing vocals, where your mouth is stays consistent across the whole song. So you probably had this happen to you before. Like maybe your intro and verse hits in your mix and it sounds really good, and then it gets to the chorus and then everything gets disastrous, and then it gets better around the breakdown, and then it goes into the bridge and then just sounds out of whack again. It's probably because you're not remaining consistent with your mic placement, right? So if I'm going to record a single, every time I go to record a vocal, intentionally, I'm thinking, okay, the last time I recorded, I was 3 inches away from my mic. So for this whole song, I'm going to put my face in the same exact position the whole time. And I'm also going to have the mic in the same position, right? Same room, same position, same gain on your audio interface. You want it to be consistent along the whole song, the whole album. That's what makes it easier to mix later down the line, because you're not going into conflicting parts, right? Make sure your mic isn't like this. It's not like this. You want to be facing right into it, like the manufacturers and engineers that made this mic designed it to be, right? Because if you have your mic like this, you're going to have a drastically different sound than if it's like this or off to the side. Always, always, always remain consistent. Keep your microphones in the same place across your entire record. And the last thing is drums, I guess. I guess I have a drum head up there. I don't have a drum kit, but it's the same thing for drums, right? If you have a kick mic, make sure that kick mic is in the exact same place the entire time, right? If you have a snare mic, make sure that snare mic is the exact same position the entire record. That's what makes it hard for you. Maybe the snare sounds really good at one part of your song and maybe one song on the album, and then it totally sounds trash on the next. It's because you aren't keeping the same mic placements. So really, really pay attention to the placements of your mic. I should have got more water before I recorded this, but that should give you the basics. And again, very basic, but we need to be reminded more than we're taught. So I hope that reminder helps you out the next time you go to write, because I can't tell you how many times I've gotten bands send me stuff and the basics aren't even done, and I have to tell them to re-record, or I have to submit a subpar mix because of the deadline and everything like that. I don't want to do that. I want to give the best mix possible. So that's why I'm making this video for people that are trying to level up, right? So I'm going to head into my DAW here, and the next thing is source tones. Source tones. You want to make sure that your source tones sound so good that it already sounds mixed. For example, I will play you my drums. As you can hear, drum kit already sounds good. And don't go with cheapy gear. Like, if you go with like some free drum VST, it's probably not going to sound as good as if you like actually invested some money and bought an actual good drum VST, right? So like really invest into the sound that you're doing, and you want to make sure that your snares, your kick, your cymbals are all the type of drum heads that you want, right, for the sound. So for instance, like if I play the drums with the guitars, I made sure when I was picking my snare that my snare matches with my guitar tone, right? I made sure that my kick matches with my guitar tone, matches with the vocals, matches with the bass. I hear a lot artists will come to me with their demos, and like the song is there, the songwriting is there. It's just like the kick drum tone like just sounds honestly retarded, or like the snare just sounds like completely out of tune, like compared to what it should be, right? Like the snare sounds like completely like way too bright, way too dark compared to the guitar tone. Same thing with the guitar tone. Maybe the kick, the snare, the cymbals, cymbal tunings are really good, but the guitar tone just sucks, right? You need to make sure that your tones are all symbiotic with each other. You know how like when like you have individual cells and they like clump together and they become like one big organism or whatever. I don't know science, but like picture like you have a bunch of pieces and you want them all to come together into one group, right? So it all sounds locked in. So for instance, like with my guitars, I want to make sure that my guitar and my bass lock in with each other. I want to make sure that my bass is doing its job, which is assisting the guitar tone. So I'll give you a listen for this. As you can hear, if I unsolo this, literally the bass and the guitar tone locked together, and I purposely made my guitar tone and my bass guitar tone symbiotic with each other. Like I did that on purpose. And I feel like a lot of artists, they just pick a random tone that sounds good in solo, And yeah, almost any tone can rip in solo if you freaking turn up your volume all the way, right? But what we're looking for is we want to make sure, do the tones complement each other? So if I play guitar, bass, and drums, you can hear that it's already put together and it already almost sounds mixed. It might even sound better than anything you've ever made so far. And I'm not saying that to flex. I'm literally just saying that because it's so important to have source tones correctly molded in for the sound of your record, right? Because like I could probably just release like this demo.
So we'll just have to see. Always caught in an escape pod. Repeating my mistakes. I'm just a fucking blood.
And obviously, it's not like top shelf production because this isn't the mix version. You can check out the mix version in the description of my portfolio because I did this for a client. But you can hear that it's at that quality level that we need it to be. I hear like sometimes bands come to me with demos, and I'm just like, and I don't say this to be mean or to hate on any of my clients because I love my clients, but like I'm just thinking like sometimes like, how am I supposed to mix this? Like we didn't pay attention to the source tones or how anything blends together, right? We need to make sure it blends together like a soup, like in a beef stew. It's like you're not gonna add Twinkies to beef stew, right? You're gonna add the real ingredients. What we're trying to do is we're trying to basically make like a food item with our music, if that makes any sense. So source tones, yes, extremely important. The next thing I want to go over is making sure your stuff is timeline and in pocket. So this is another thing that artists give me all the time is they give me tracks that are out of time. And if I ever hear tracks that are out of time, I'm going to call them out and I'm going to be like, hey, is this the way you like it? Because like, I get it. Like sometimes stuff that's out of time sounds cool and it sounds organic. Like, do you like it this way? Or do you not? Because like we need to re-record this. By having everything in pocket and in timeline, everything automatically EQs itself, right? So I'll give you a little example. If we play this section, you can hear that everything is in time. Actually, I'll give you a better section. This is a breakdown right here. Right here. Hear how every single time a hit comes in, every time a kick, every time a snare, the whole band plays on time. So just to tell you straight up, you need to be really good at your instrument to be able to do this. But not only you have to be good, because I was a really good guitar player for 10 years, and then I had to learn how to record and be a good guitar player. Those things are like two completely different skills. You can be great at playing guitar just in your room, but you also have to learn how to become a great recording guitar player, right? So for instance, I'm quad tracking this whole song. And to give you an example, just this section, I have to record this same riff 4 times. And just this section, I probably got like 20 to 30 takes of just this one riff, right? Because I wanted to make sure that every guitar comes at the same time and they're all in pocket. And yes, it does take more time to do that. But I see a lot of bands, they record their guitars one take, one time, and then they run with it. And that is why everything is out of time. If you want to make high quality music and have high quality mixes, you need to make sure that you're getting the best possible takes that you can do. I get it. If your skill level isn't there on guitar, you might have to settle for something that's a little bit out of time. But if you are a good guitar player, you're tight with your picking, you're tight with your palm muting and everything, there's no excuse why you can't get an almost perfect take on every single track. Okay? Same thing with vocals. Vocals being out of tune is almost worse than being out of pocket is almost worse than anything else. Because listeners listen to the vocals mostly, right? You need to make sure that your vocals are in time as well, just how your guitars and drums and bass are. Right? Yeah, you being in time is like the number one thing that listeners can tell if you're a beginner or not. Because if you go and listen to like the top bands in the scene right now, their performance on their recordings is crystal clear, clean, everything's in time. But if you go listen to some Spotify band with like less than 100 monthly listeners, less than 1,000 monthly listeners, I guarantee you most of their stuff is out of time. Okay? This is why people stay below 1,000 monthly listeners and they never grow, because they don't pay attention to the fundamentals and they just put out slop. Right? And I'm calling you guys out. You need to stop putting out slop, and you need to take more time on your recordings, because that is going to make your mix better. If you can't record properly, if you can't get things in time, if you can't get source tones so good that it already sounds mixed, focus on that. You don't need to EQ yet. You don't need to compress yet. You don't need to do stereo imaging yet. You don't need a mastering chain yet. None of that is going to fix that unless you know the basic fundamentals that I have right here. So I think I went over everything that I need to go over. I think that's probably about it. So just to recap, make sure that you are recording your guitars properly. Make sure that the gain on your audio interface is correct across all mics, all types of instruments. You want to make sure that everything is in timeline and pocket, and make sure that your source tones blend together and are well balanced and sound like a real demo, not just some weird guitar tone over here, this weird kick that doesn't match that, the snare that doesn't match the bass tone. You want it all to go together correctly. And that's basically it. That is like, you can go off this video, and if you've already been on this video for this long, like you can go and you can go watch the next guy talking about how you need EQ guitars at 4K. It's not going to do anything unless you do this stuff. It's not. Just being straight up with you. So I hope this helps you out. I got stuff in the description, free and paid stuff. If you want to check that out, go ahead, and I will see you in the next video.